Hey guys, Paul here. Does anybody else remember a card called Crystron Halqifibrax? I know I do, because this was, for the better half of 2020, a card that everybody wanted banned. The discourse around this card, the anticipation leading up to its release, really, and just all of the effects that it had in the game were, I almost want to say, unprecedented levels of just like powerful, passionate arguments and emotions about this card, right? Like needle fiber, as it was, called before it came out, like it released in Japan in like 2018 or like early 2019, and they had it for a couple of years. And so we finally get it in the TCG. It enables all sorts of crazy combos. It summons tuners, it's lots of combo extensions. It can end and make these very powerful boards. It's, a whole thing, right? A lot of people hated this card. A lot of people wanted it banned. The card that ended up getting banned, of course, later on was, well, there's a few, like Jet Synchron got banned and Link Cross got banned and, things like that. Lion, I feel like needle fiber or Halqifibrax is not spoken about now at all. It's not even really played. I feel like it's played in like a lot of lower tier rogue or like super low tier decks as like their kind of their gimmick, their thing that extends their combo a bit. But a lot of the top decks aren't really playing it. And that isn't just about, Tri Brigade or Drytron or, Virtual World. That's also like even the newer decks like Sword Soul and Floowandereeze. They're not really using, Halqifibrax. But at the time, the furiosity that people had towards this card was like, ban it. When are they going to ban it? They need to hurry and ban Halqifibrax. It's ruining this game. It's killing this game. And then the time passes and now it's just like, nah. And there's a few other Yu-Gi-Oh cards that follow that same trend. And why, I guess the moral of the story today is don't be too quick to, scream for bans. Another card that's a really good example is Borrelsword Dragon. Now, I know that today that sounds like a crazy thing to say, but I remember a period of time where people really, really wanted Borrelsword Dragon banned. It's just this generic link form monster. It can kill you out of nowhere. It creates OTKs from what seems like, a toothpick and some string. And people wanted it gone, right? Like people were like, okay, this card needs to be banned. I'm just tired of losing to it. Now, Borrelsword also isn't really played a lot. I mean, like it's played in extra decks if you can't afford Access Code Talker, but now Access Code Talker is the new Borrelsword Dragon. He shows up, pops your board, and kills you. And you could even argue that maybe he's more broken. You can't respond to his effects and, that whole shebang. He gets rid of your field in the process. So, was Borrelsword really broken? Were we maybe just a bit preemptive with our hatred? How does that play out? And there's, of course, plenty more examples where that came from. I've mentioned cards like Evenly Matched in the past. I feel like there's like another one that's like fairly new. Zeus. A lot of people complain about Zeus. So, or still kind of do, right? Like Alpha AA Zeus, the Xyz overlay thing. Powerful card. I know kind of towards the tail end of last year, early parts of this year, people wanted this card banned. Or, whatever. They were like, ban this card, it's too powerful, multiple field nukes is so unfair. And don't get me wrong, it is a powerful card and people are still playing it. So, it hasn't like fallen out of vogue entirely, but it comes across to me as a card that is powerful, but one that does have counterplay and as time goes on feels less and less oppressive as more decks just have ways to answer it, more players are prepared to deal with it. And also as certain other small cards get banned or limited in ways that skew how easy it is to even use the card. Like for instance, Zodiac Drident got banned. And that seems like it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with Zeus because they're sort of two separate cards. And you use Zodiac Borbo to make Zeus oftentimes if you're playing it like in a Zodiac deck. The thing is though, with Drident banned, the idea of playing Zodiacs entirely is a little bit diminished. It's just like, okay, well, I can play this Zodiac Borbo thing and make Zeus, but now the fact that I can't make Drident means that it's just less attractive to play Zodiacs. And so now the deck that utilized Zeus the most is just a lot less popular. So Zeus, as a result, is not played as much. And I think over time that can play a large role in people's perception of this card and how strong it is and like whether or not it needs to get banned or needs to get whatever. There's even cards like today that I think are having that same conversation. I know Access Code Talker is a very good example, actually. It's a card that, you know, for me, I've had periods of time where I've been like, I hate this card. I really don't like this thing. It just shows up, feels like any deck can make it, pop my whole board, and just kill me out of nowhere. Another really good example is Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. This is a very relevant one. I still don't like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. I don't really like the whole Vert Anaconda play. I have personally hoped that maybe this gets hit. I've always, thought, well, okay, with Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer coming out now, maybe it will kind of replace Dragoons in many decks, and then we just won't see as much Dragoon played, but it could also just mean that maybe they're going to be banning Dragoon. I don't really know, but perhaps we won't even think that much about it in like 6 months to a year from now. Maybe it'll just be part of the thing, just another card that exists. I mean, I remember when that card released in the OCG, it was seen as extremely oppressive and very powerful and like format warping. When it came out here, it wasn't even immediately like that. Yeah, plenty of decks run it. Yeah, it's annoying, but it does get outed more easily than you think. And in fact, just to bring up that whole Destroyer Phoenix debate, some would say, and I kind of agree with them, that I think that the benefits in running Destiny Hero, Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer are actually like so great that they outweigh the incentive to run Dragoon. So maybe it'll be one of those Boral Sword access code situations where there's just a new card that does some things better and some things worse, but just overall feels more efficient to use. Like, to me, the Fusion Destiny engine is a lot less bricky than running Dark Magician, Red Eyes, and these Red Eyes fusions that can all brick and also like limit your summons for the turn. Whereas you can just throw Fusion Destiny into any deck and like slap it down at the end of your combo or whatever. There's far less restrictions involved. Also, Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer it's a lot harder to out. Like, technically Dragoons is harder to deal with because you can't target it and it can't be destroyed. But like once it gets kaiju'd, for instance, it's not really coming back. Whereas Destroyer Phoenix, it's like this sort of more passive pop and float and pop and float, and like it can keep coming back, and it's kind of tough to deal with it in that way. So, I'm not really sure. I think it might be a case where the people who are screaming for bans are maybe screaming for them too soon. But it's weird because, I'm kind of one of them. I don't like Dragoons. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing the back of it. So, I don't know. I guess the moral of the story here is just that Yu-Gi-Oh cards come and go. Powerful cards are always going to be here. Just because they're strong, especially at release, does not mean that they're necessarily game-breaking, game-warping. And I'd say that the cherry on top that kind of like tops us off really well is the fact that in almost all of these examples, Konami has never hit the card, like those cards, the ones that we think like, oh, this is so problematic, this is such an issue. They haven't hit Zeus. They haven't, hit like Boral Sword Dragon. They didn't hit Halqifibrax. So maybe they recognize this perhaps more so than we do. I've always sort of felt that like as card game players, as Yu-Gi-Oh players, and myself included, we jump the gun on things a lot, and we don't always know what's best for the game or like what we necessarily need. We just know that what we want in the moment is, it feels pertinent. I just lost to this at my locals. This card needs to be banned. This deck needs to be hit. But it's not always the case. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you feel like sometimes people do make their assumptions a little bit too quickly? And how do you feel about some of these cards? Things like Access Code Talker, things like Dragoon. All right, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.